Superman is always a tricky topic to speak about, mainly because of his cultural significance. I mean, coming out of the Great Depression as an avenue for folks to find a reason to smile and escape from, well, the real world in the 30s, he's the first to do it big, and he's arguably the most famous superhero to ever do it on all forms of media, especially in the modern era. But it's safe to say Superman always comes in at a tumultuous time when things are on a downslope. On a localized scale, currently the superhero market is not performing well. MCU is trying to recapture that magic that they had for over a decade, but keep failing despite some decent attempts. So again, Superman reappears with the opportunity to give hope to the superhero genre. So even on a meta level, there's always this extra weight and inherent pressure for it to succeed. Superhero fatigue is a thing, though it doesn't mean there's no remedy for it. It just needs the right sauce, and many have tried to create it, but just haven't been able to recently. Enter James Gunn, who is one of the most respectable superhero directors currently working. If you indulge in superhero movies, chances are one or more of your favorite superhero movies were probably directed by him. On both teams, by the way, when considering his TV work as well, which are generally well regarded. He has made it his trademark at this point to bring to life these lesser known characters and make them fascinating and popular. I guarantee you, so few people knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were before him, and now they're a household name. Few don't know who Rocket Raccoon is. And when you bring a director like that with that kind of pedigree and join him with the most recognizable fictional character of all time, there's no debating that, that's a fact. On paper, that's the perfect storm. Watching the film, you quickly learn that Gunn wants to do something bold and say something with this movie. Gunn didn't want to do the superhero origin style of storytelling, and instead he just throws the audience right into this world that has already seen Superman. You realize he wants to talk about the state of today's political climate. You can tell there's commentary on the Palestine and Israel issues, a timely themed message on immigration. The overall message was just fantastic. Crypto is cute. I mean, there's a lot of things that James Gunn is trying to juggle here. And he tries to juggle all this with in-universe problems that Superman is already dealing with. And because of how wacky everything is, nothing feels bizarre, so it works when you see crazy things like Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane in a spaceship. It feels natural. It feels like it's possible in this universe. And I love that he frickin' did it again, man. My favorite sequence from Guardians 3, which to this day floors me still. He basically did it in an arguably more advanced way in Superman. The performances themselves were really good. Personally, Eddie Gathegi and Nicholas Hoult were the standouts for sure. Eddie as Mr. Terrific was somehow able to pull off the impossible by having comedic relief during action sequences and it not feeling uncalled for or awkward. Nicholas Hoult I always associate with horror titles like Warm Bodies, The Menu, Renfield, and he just has that good guy appeal. But he was as convincing as he could be as Lex Luthor, if not for the weird narrative choices done with his character because, well, his motivations were extremely fuzzy to say the least, to the point that he had to explain to us what his problem was because subtlety is a missing factor in this film. Had he not told us why he's doing what he's doing, it would be difficult to understand his character. Regardless, I couldn't believe he pulled off the cold maniac look. It's impressive that he was able to show this kind of range. Anytime he was on screen, I was just eating it up. Really great stuff as Lex. Lois Lane is okay. Rachel Brosnahan is a good actor. I'm just not the biggest fan of Lois Lane's character. Amy Adams is also a good actor, but I didn't really care for her version of Lois Lane either. I will say Rachel brings some grit to Lois and convinces me that she's an actual reporter, which is neat, I guess. And I think it really helped that the chemistry Rachel and David had was infectious. I love the choice to have us 3 months into their relationship because you understand why it's delicate and why both are trying to see whether to take it serious or not. The real meat and potatoes of the film is how did David Cornsweet fare as Superman? There was so much talk about how people didn't like that he wasn't big enough or that the suit looked funky during his reveal. Henry Cavill will always be Superman. I never cared for any of that stuff. I much prefer waiting till the end product and then judging it based off of that. Pattinson, despite not nearly being the size or being as ripped as you'd expect for Batman, proved to everyone that you can change superficial elements of a character as long as the essence is there. Personally, while I can't deny that out of all the Supermen, Henry Cavill is the one that I think looks the most like Superman, whether it was due to the writing or the tone of the Snyder films that he has no power over, I always felt like there was always gonna be a better Superman later on. David Corenswet's iteration is so much closer to that idealistic, Boy Scout, good-natured, almost to a fault depiction that grasps what Superman is. He's probably the most relatable Superman we've gotten, and that's a win in and of itself. He's handsome, he's charming, and he's funny without overdoing any aspect either. There's a lot to applaud in terms of how James Gunn went about handling who Superman is. He has no real veneer or identity crisis. He's honest and probably sees everything as black and white, which leads to understandable moments of anger and frustration throughout the film. So you understand when there's clearly factions of people in this film, and Superman just sees it as, no, I just want to stop people from dying, period. I see where this is going and I'm gonna stop it. Unfortunately, the trade-off is that just like with Pattinson, I wish there was more Clark Kent on screen. Not as a different person, but just like for a movie that understands Superman is a human first, above being an immigrant from another planet, there's not much human time in the film. One of the only faults Kill Bill 2 has is that it didn't understand Superman as a human first and foremost. Clark Kent is not his costume. I hope there will be a better balance between the two in future Superman installments, just like I hope the same for Pattinson. James Gunn has a lot on his plate, clearly, but it must be said that his ability to juggle his trademark humor with emotional moments was not in top form in this film. And dare I say, he bit off more than he can chew. Sure, his humor is still present, but because of how loaded the movie is, and I guess the pressure of starting off this new universe, it felt like he wasn't on top of his game. The humor was not great. Moments that shouldn't have had humor. Think about in the Guardians films, Yondu dying was devastating, and it wasn't intercut with a quip or a smart answer. Or Drax's moment with Mantis, where when she reads his feelings, you as the audience also feel it, and those movies have so much humor. But they understand when a joke can be inserted. There's just too much humor everywhere, and it's not great humor at that. That's all without saying how shockingly predictable the movie is, which is another strange thing from Gunn's end. Allegedly, Gunn had a script that was episodic with title cards dividing up each plot, and you can tell that them throwing away that script harmed the experience of the film overall. The pacing is all over the place in the film, and I feel like those title cards would have really helped. Where Gunn has always shined was making all these lesser known heroes seem awesome. He didn't really do that with these characters. It was so strange to see some of these characters not only be one-dimensional, but also just feel like background extras that didn't bring anything to the table and were ultimately forgettable. Isabel Merced is a great actor and she was completely wasted. Nathan Fillion was okay, some of the jokes landed, some didn't. James Gunn is a guy that flourishes when working with small-time characters. This movie at times feels like it was outside of his range of specialization. I will say I certainly do appreciate that this film doesn't feel like sequel bait. It has stuff, sure, that you can definitely work off of in later movies, but it has its own isolated story, and you can tell that it feels like it's trying to live in the moment, and it's not just set up for the next movie. The movie's gonna make a lot of money, and it's definitely gonna have the opportunity to make something special of this universe, but cramming too much stuff into one movie is not the way to go. I did like the movie, but I didn't love it, and that sucks. But it's a good start, I feel. But that's it for me. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, and sincerely yours, Anthony.